All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining Sonoma County Tourism for the latest in our series of Facebook Live events. Each year, Wine Enthusiast magazine produces their 40 Under 40 list of tastemakers who are helping to shape the future of the food, beverage, and hospitality industry. This year, we were thrilled to see 5 Sonoma County honorees celebrated amongst this prestigious group. Today, we are excited to have all 5 of them with us for our event. Our host for the session is Virginie Boone, contributing editor of Wine Enthusiast. Virginie, take it away.
Thank you so much. So this is definitely a big deal, and it makes me sad seeing all of you that we can't all be in person. But what a year. I'm so happy that Top 40 Under 40 was able to come out this year, for one thing, and that all 5 of you were honored because, we look at people across the industry, as you know, people who have different types of roles in wine, spirits, and beer predominantly. And there's a lot of people to choose from. There's a lot of people doing great things, but for 5 of you to be representing Sonoma County, to be representing the wine industry, and to be in the pages of Wine Enthusiasts, I could not be more thrilled. So glad that we get to sort of celebrate a little bit here in this Facebook Live. So I'll ask each of you to just quickly, for people who haven't read the magazine and haven't seen your bios, to just a quick introduce you, your name, where you work, and what you do. So I'll start with Maggie.
I'm Maggie Cruz. I'm the winemaker here at Jordan Winery in Alexander Valley.
Chappie.
I'm Chappie Cottrell. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Joseph Jewell Wines in Forestville.
And Brene.
I'm Brene Royal, Vineyard Manager for Monte Rosso Vineyard in Sonoma for the E&J Gallo Winery.
Z.
I'm Sidani Arcidiacono, and I make Pinot Noir for Sonoma Couture.
And Chris.
I'm Chris Christensen. I'm the owner and winemaker for Bodkin Wines.
So hopefully everybody can see we've got, it's a nice range of people who are involved in the winemaking production side, people who are involved in the vineyard side, and people, Chappie, I think you didn't mention it, but we talk about it in your bio that you came actually from the restaurant side as well as podcasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I run a podcast called Crew, and so basically, except for the last couple months, because it's been kind of crazy with everything going on. Usually every Monday, publish a long form podcast with influencers, disruptors, legends of the wine industry. So some pretty incredible people from whoever Raj Parr and Stephen Thiessen to Francois Pichon and whatnot. And then, it was past few years I've been running wine programs at Cavallo Point down in Sausalito, and then most recently at Barn Diva in Healdsburg.
Right. So I'd love to have your perspective, each of you. We sort of established before this went live that none of us actually are originally from Sonoma County. We've all come from different places. So I'd love your perspective on, what sort of brought you here, why you think it's an interesting place to work. Is it a place of innovation and opportunity in your mind? And maybe we'll start with Chris, since you were the last to introduce yourself.
Sonoma County is really, really beautiful for a number of reasons outside the kind of the physical beauty of the coastline and the hills and the valleys. But it really supports a certain degree of viticultural diversity that you're not going to find anywhere else. Sonoma County is about the same size as the state of Delaware. And in this relatively small space, you were able to grow with a high degree of success Bordeaux varieties, Burgundian varieties, Germanic varieties, Italian varieties, and Rhone varieties. So just about any kind of grape from anywhere in the world can be grown with a certain degree of success somewhere in Sonoma County, which is pretty cool, And I also think that's kind of how I gravitated towards this area. Like, I really liked Santa Rosa. I liked the community. It really reminded me of the city I grew up in back in Iowa, which is kind of a very home-like feeling to me, like a salt of the earth community. And also, for me to continue to be here, when I started my brand in 2011, I really wanted to be a Sonoma County-based brand because, I feel that there's a certain degree of opportunity as a business owner, someone who's getting into the wine business with my own brand, there is still opportunity to be had here in Sonoma County, which is a little bit different than what you'd find in Napa, where the buy-in to be a Napa wine brand is considerably higher and realistically out of my means, you know, for somebody who started a winery with less money than you can pay for a Kia Sophia. So is that idea of access and entry also here in Sonoma County, on top of the diversity that's found here and just the, you know, down to earth vibe, it's all been really attractive for me to call this place home since 2001. It's nearly 20 years now.
And so, you know, you point to the diversity that exists in Sonoma County across varieties. I know when Z and I talked about Pinot Noir a few months ago, just specifically, Z, you're based, Sonoma Cutrer is based in Russian River. You are mostly focused on Pinot Noir there, as well as some Chardonnay. But we even delved into like the diversity within one appellation of Sonoma County and within one variety. So what can you explain a little bit more about that from your perspective?
I think just laying again on the diversity of people and how people feel so welcome when they come here, they feel home. Like I come from Argentina and from Mendoza, and I felt very welcome. I felt it was a place with a lot of opportunities. Same with grapes. You find a lot of varieties here, definitely different styles, that one variety can be made in tons of styles, and even in the same appellation, you can have different types of Pinot Noir or Chardonnays or Cabernets or Zinfandels. And we're in a very small area, but we can all appreciate their differences and really enjoy the diversity, not just of people, but wine also.
And Brene, you have a slightly different perspective, just being on the vineyard side of the business and managing one of the most famous sites in Sonoma County, Monte Rosa Vineyard. And so maybe you can speak a little bit to, you know, the opportunity that you felt was there, but also you work with a lot of different wineries as well. So tell us about kind of what you see from your perspective.
I'll just apologize if I get too geeky just to begin with, but professionally, I love Sonoma County because there's 18 different AVAs. And I think the last count I saw is that we have 64 varieties here. So what Z just mentioned, like within one appellation, you can have multiple different styles of Pinot Noir or Cabernet Sauvignon, which is closer to home base for me. But that just speaks to the opportunity of what we can create as innovators, what we can sell, everything, because there's something here for everybody. So I know for me, I can drive an hour north and learn something completely different that I don't have here on Monte Rosa. So just the levels of opportunity and the expansiveness of the palette, regardless of what niche of the wine industry you're in, you just kind of, the world's your oyster. You can do everything, you can experiment with everything. And I know on Monte Rosa, we're deep diving in just the style of wine we make. There are a number of wineries outside of Gallo that make Monte Rosa wines. And I know something that we're exploring now is, you know, how are two different elevation of Zinfandels going to play together with the age of vines? I mean, we have in 2021, I'll have Zinfandel that's 128 years old. And then I have stuff that will be 1 year old. So, you know, how do those two different flavor profiles work together, and how can we further expand on those styles coming off of Monte Rosa? So for me professionally, there's just room to always grow. I don't think you'll ever outgrow Sonoma County and what you can do here with wine.
And about an hour north would be Maggie at Jordan up in Alexander Valley. So, you know, Maggie, and I think the other thing that we haven't touched on yet is just there's also room for all sizes of companies here. I mean, you've got, you know, one-man operations, one-woman operations, and then you've got big companies like Gallo, but in between you have, you know, and Gallo remains a family-owned company. You've got, you know, all sorts of sizes of wineries and experiences here. So Maggie, up in Jordan, you're family-owned. You focus on making 2 wines. It's very specific. So how do you see your opportunity here?
You're absolutely right. Sonoma County is just very approachable to all kinds of wineries. So we are family-owned, second-generation vintner. John Jordan is now running the business, and we make very French-inspired wines. But you can come to Jordan and do the full, elegant, ultra-premium experience, and you can go and do the same kind of fun garage kind of tasting, a small cult place. I mean, there's all different kinds of opportunities here, and it just makes it for a really fun. And Renee said it. I think you'll never stop discovering something new in Sonoma County. It's just so diverse.
Mm-hmm. And chat, sort of going back to the element of innovation and entrepreneurship. I mean, Chappie, you've basically had 3 different careers in a very short time frame in Sonoma. You still podcast, but you worked at a restaurant, you've worked in production, and now you are working for a small winery, Joseph Jewell. So it seems like there's lots of different things you can do and learn here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to give people perspective, I moved here in August of 2017, and I had studied fermentation science in college, but I had never actually worked in the wine industry. So I worked harvest in Grand Cru Custom Crush in Windsor, and then I became a somm, and then a lead somm, then a wine director, and now a director of sales and marketing, in basically 3 years, and completely different jobs that have touch on every part of the industry, which is amazing. But to everyone's point, I drive whatever to Bodega Bay, and I take a different road, and you see a winery that you're like, oh, that's where that is. I never knew that, right? Or you see a sign, you're like, oh, that's why this vineyard is named this, because it's on this road. It's, every single time I get in the car, I see something different, I learn something new. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I think we all do. We've all been tourists in our own backyard, certainly when we first came here, but even to your point, to this day, I mean, there's always areas to explore that you haven't quite, seen everything. But from your point of view, each of you, like from a tourist's eyes, or when you have people come and visit, like what do you really try to teach them about Sonoma? What do you try to expose them to? Anybody want to jump in, or shall I ask Chris to start? What are some of your favorite things to do? What makes Sonoma such a great wine destination outside of the things that we've talked about? Or is it all the things that we've talked
people.
about? I mean,
yeah. I'll jump in. I know when I started out in wine not too long ago, you have this idea of how something's going to taste, or you already have this set expectation in your mind. And so whenever people come to visit, I'm like, try any and everything you can, because I think this leads back to the last question. Like, you're just going to try something you haven't, and you're probably more likely going to have your expectations reversed or changed in some kind of way. So whenever people want to come up here and wine taste, I'm like, forget everything you've heard or what other people have told you, because you're going to make your own opinion, and it's going to blow your mind. I know when I started out in wine, I was like, oh, I really don't drink Chardonnays. Now I've got like 10 favorite Chardonnays. And so come with an open mind and an open palate, because you're going to find something you didn't expect to like or whatever else, but kind of come in as a blank slate, because you're going to be surprised. And I know I was.
Mm-hmm.
I love to tell people to get outside of the tasting room and if it's a nice patio or whatever else that's beautiful and fun, but go into the cellar, go into the vineyard, like that's where wine's made, and go explore, ask all the questions, because there isn't a dumb or stupid question. I learn stuff every day. I had somebody ask me the other day, like, how did we decide to plant Vitis vinifera? I was like, that's actually a really good question. Let's go back to the Phoenicians and this whole history. So there's no stupid question. Just be curious.
I do feel that Sonoma is, the feedback I get a lot is that people just feel very comfortable here. They feel welcome. They feel like often they are meeting somebody who is actually making the wine or growing the grapes, or the staff that helps make some of the food. And I think that is such an important element of Sonoma, is that people can feel comfortable no matter what their level of knowledge or interest is. I think Z, you were about to say something.
Yeah, and I think that's on us also to really encourage people to feel comfortable when they come and visit us. And I think I've never had a bad experience when I went to tour in a winery, because I love to tour in wineries and have that experience. And when I'm giving a tour, you'll see me how much my eyes get wide open when people is asking me questions, because I want to interact with people. I want to be sharing what I know with them. So when they come with any sort of question, I make sure that when I start any tour or any discussion, I'm really open and welcoming to them, so they are not afraid of asking anything. And here we are in such a beautiful, beautiful place. So come and do hikes, come and visit our little restaurants. They're amazing places, and we have great wine as well. So I think there's multiple things that you can do, and Sonoma County is so diverse that you can go to the mountains, you can go to the beach, and everything is going to bring a great experience, and people is going to be really welcoming. So that's great.
Yeah, and I think Jordan, has done a very good job in the last, what is it now, 10 years or so, really opening up the property to let people not just explore kind of how wine is made and how grapes are grown, but showing the gardens and showing kind of everything that it takes to run an estate in Sonoma, which can grow so many things well.
Yes, we found people really want an experience. The whole idea of coming into a tasting room, sitting down and being told about the wines is kind of old now. People want to come in and check out the soils and go in the vineyards and talk to the chef about the foods that they're tasting. And they really want to have a lot more questions. With the digital age, people are very well informed. And so they want to really learn more. And I think that here we've started opening up with hikes and an estate tour. We have 1,100 acres, so we can kind of view all the different areas of our property, and people enjoy that. They want the experience now, and I know so many other people are doing the same things at other wineries, and so you really get to interact and not just this quick 15-minute, here's your Chardonnay, here's your Pinot Noir, and then move on. You really kind of get to spend time with people and learn about the area.
Mm-hmm. Chris, I think you were going to add something.
Oh yeah, I mean the people of Sonoma County, I think, is one of the greatest assets, that we have here, particularly on the wine side of things. So when my friends come in, I have a lot of friends in the Midwest where I grew up, and they come in, I'm always like, hey, where do you recommend tasting? I was like, well, hey, how about you go here, here, and here? I know so and so over here, there, check them out, because it also is kind of showcasing the diversity of backgrounds we have as vintners and people who've gotten into the industry. It's not always people who've come down through multi-generational family businesses. Plenty of people have come to it from backgrounds everywhere, from medicine to technology to, from the cellar on up. So, kind of showcasing the different stories of other vintners and friends of mine, I think, is a really important part of it. And the other thing I always encourage my friends to do when they're in town is to go rent a bicycle. Like, go be out in nature, really ride. If you, my friends who have the cardiovascular strength to do these things, go ride your bike out to Dry Creek, like be on the road, see the rolling hills, be up close with the vines. Like you really lose perspective of these things, of the true splendor and beauty of Sonoma County. When you're in a car, you're driving by at 55 miles an hour while texting. People don't do that. But to get up close and personal with it, to really understand and get the perspective of it, when it's like, this is hillside fruit and you're biking by a hillside, it's super steep, and you're like, oh, I kind of get it. So it kind of brings a perspective to it when you're kind of out in the natural aspects of Sonoma County, and that's something I always encourage people to do when they come and visit.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've enjoyed seeing, even in this virtual age that we're living in right now, is a lot more hands-on, kind of bringing people into wine cellars or bringing them out to vineyards. And I've been on some of these consumer tastings, and you just forget sometimes that there's a lot of people who haven't come to wine country, who can't come to wine country, who are so curious about it, who love wine but just have never touched the vines or smelled a cellar, and they really want to have that experience. And so it's one of the better things I've seen the wine industry do in this pandemic timing, is bring people in, let people sort of see things. Have any of you, what are you seeing out there in terms of guest services or the guest experience changing for people who love wine and who love Sonoma County Are any of you doing anything at your properties? How is it going to change as we get into winter? What are your perceptions on that?
Yeah, for us, I'll jump in. We have a tiny little tasting room in Forestville that is mostly indoors, and it's basically, I'm looking out at Highway 116. It's a main highway with rock quarry trucks going back and forth all day, and it's loud and bumpy. And so we, in a pinch, have people sit outside on the sidewalk, but it's not, like San Francisco or Healdsburg on the plaza where it's beautiful and gorgeous and quiet and there's people mingling about. It's the highway. So we've been basically having people carpool with us, follow us out to our Starscape Vineyard, which is 5 minutes away across from Kistler. And we hang out in the middle of a vineyard, just us and, for a couple hours and drink some wine and wander around. And people absolutely love it. They're like, I've never been out in a vineyard before. This is so cool. And they can ask all these questions that they never knew they had the question to begin with. So that's kind of what we're doing, but it's harder for, a lot of businesses that are tiny and only inside.
Right. But that's super innovative. And I think why you almost ask yourself, like, why weren't we doing that before? But sometimes you just need the world to change a little bit for you to think differently.
Yeah.
Anybody else have some sort of, thoughts on how we really bring Sonoma County out to the world when people can't come here?
I think this has brought a lot of creativity for all of us. So we are using our technology much, much more and really giving the time to explain people what we have to offer here and give a little more training and a little more knowledge about our brands. So we are doing much more throughout technology. And of course, we are open to receive people here following the different protocols that we have to stay safe. But I've seen even in other counties, they just want to come and help us out. They just want to come to wine country and show support. So I guess for everyone, if you feel comfortable, you want to come and visit, just give us a call. We'll arrange a visit, a tour. And if not, we will continue exploring new ways to reach out to all of our consumers.
And Brene, I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say fire pits. So whether it be Jay or Liz and Martini, fire pits, the use of fireplaces, creating kind of like a winter wonderland experience. I've seen that a lot, especially even here along Highway 12, just trying to make it as comfortable and pleasant as the weather changes. But then just, again, as you mentioned, bringing ourselves to people, sending out samples, having really awesome wine sales, but being virtual, whether it be via Zoom or however we can connect with our consumers and just give them a personalized experience is something that we've leaned on. But if people can make it out, you're not sitting out in the cold most of the time. There are heaters and fire pits and really cozier experiences that I think we would normally have. So I know that that's something that we're employing at our different sites.
Yeah, and cold here is relative, right? For many people all over the rest of the U.S.
I struggle under 60, so.
Trust me, I don't.
I'm not from the Midwest.
I can't handle.
I struggle.
Yeah, but but many people think Californians are very not very weatherproof. So yes, relatively speaking, we still remain pretty good weather during even our winter months. And so we do have opportunities to sort of create experiences like you're pointing to, where it's cozy, but it's still outside and people can really relax, which is the point of wine ultimately, right? So Maggie, I think at Jordan, you have some things that you're doing differently over the winter time. Are you not?
We started up, we were one of the first wineries to open up with our hikes. We couldn't actually even pour wine here. So we basically, you came, you hiked, and then you took wine and food to go. And I was surprised of how many people wanted to do that. They drove all the way up here from the South Bay and went hiking and took their food. And so as things opened up, we started to create like a little bit more of a bistro style restaurant, because we found people didn't want to just come for an hour. They wanted to stay for a little bit longer and really just enjoy themselves and, like you said, relax. As things, we have such a food component to our wines because our wines are so food friendly. So we have found that as the winter months come, we really just kind of wanted to focus on beautifying our estate. We're redoing our tasting or our library room where you come and taste the wines, and redoing a few other pieces of the property. And so we are focusing on that this winter. So until January 1st, we're closing to guests, but we're kind of trying to come up with some new ideas so we can keep it safe and comfortable for the winter months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as all of you sort of interact with people, whether it's live or on Zoom or virtually, what do you find people most want to know about Sonoma County? Is it about the vineyard side? I mean, Chappie, you sort of,
Yeah, well, we've been doing a ton of Zoom virtual tastings and whatnot. And we did one with the Bookers, John and Diane Booker. That was crazy. That was really, really great. And John was taking people out into the vineyard and everything else. Sadly, the first question on everybody's mind is like, how are the fires? Were you affected? Mm-hmm. And luckily, you know, as a company, we're able to say, no, we're fine. Like, all our properties are good, winery and everything's great. But then I think after that, it's, you know, like, how does this work? Like, how do you like make wine? Do you like own your vineyards? Do you source from like what, like, take us through that process. What happens here? Because I think from a fundamental level, a lot of people don't realize how wine is made, how it gets to them, you know, in a restaurant on a table in their glass, or, you know, on their retail shelf or whatever else. You know, how does it go from grape in a vineyard to now it's in my body and I'm enjoying it, right? So we really like to take people through that process. And we use Google Earth actually is amazing for taking people around the county. And so we've been doing that a lot, of just doing, you know, a wide snapshot of this is California, and then zoom in, this is San Francisco, and then we're up here in Sonoma County, and people don't realize like how big the Petaluma Gap is. They're like, oh wow, that totally makes sense why it's so cold and windy and foggy. So they really get a better perspective, seeing it from a bird's eye view, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think especially when it comes to things like microclimates and time of year and what you're doing in the vineyard and why and how that matters later during harvest. It does seem that there is sort of this interest in things that we all take for granted because we've been around it for a long time, but it is really good to be reminded that it's not obvious to everybody how wine is made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say there's this new focus in on the vineyard side of it and really getting into the nitty gritty a little bit. I was kind of surprised that people don't realize that vines don't start out in March with grapes already on it. So really having people understand with like cluster formation and things like that, because we can all agree wine is physically made in the winery, but it starts in the vineyard. So I know when I'm on tours and calls and whatever else, just really talking through those different points in the season, but then also showing the complexity of wine growing. Sonoma's already so diverse with just our topography and territory, but you know, how you grow a grape is very unique, and there's no one right way to do it. So I know when people have a favorite variety or a favorite winery, that's what they really want to hone in on and learn why their wine is turning out with the specific style that it does. And that's been really fun for me. Obviously like to get a little bit more technical, and I think we're seeing a lot more of that from consumers. So when they come to Sonoma, like the diversity and the complexity is already inherent, and then all of us as creators are amplifying our specific areas. And so that's really fun for consumers. And I know on the vineyard side, that's been a huge focus.
Do any of you, as you sort of interact, you know, more and more in these sort of forums, are you finding that, you know, a lot of people that you talk to are feeling more comfortable about what they like, what they're tasting? They're, you know, just saying what they like and not worrying about what other people think? I mean, do you feel like there's a little bit more of a confidence level with that as we get more mature as a wine culture and younger generations drink wine?
Totally. Totally. You know, I really enjoy doing, you know, I've done a number of Zoom meetings and that for, you know, retail accounts, also for my own brand. And one of the things I'm really enjoying out there is how knowledgeable people are about wine. And I guess there's some selection bias where the people who are going to attend a Zoom conference are going to have that level of interest in there. But I really enjoy doing them because I get asked really, really good questions, really, really challenging questions. And, you know, I try and do as many as I can, like towards July and August, because I find them to be a fantastically good dress rehearsal for harvest and getting myself like out of the sales mindset that I spend so much of the summer months in, and then into the mindset and thinking about the process of winemaking, because people are going to ask me so many fantastic questions like, why? It's not like, oh, you buy from this vineyard. Yeah. Why do you buy from that vineyard? What is it about this location that makes it special? Oh, cool. Or, you know, why did you do spontaneous fermentation with this lot, and, you know, as opposed to inoculating with yeast in another? You know, getting those questions, it's really fantastic. So I think, you know, the public as a whole, like I felt that the wine knowledge of people, you know, largely due to maybe people sitting at home reading more, spending more time on social media, spending more time kind of getting into their interests in wine. But the overall, I feel strongly that the overall knowledge of the average consumers really stepped up, you know, really over the past few years, but realistically over the past 6 months, I guess, since quarantine started.
And do you all sense that people are drinking more wine in general?
Yes, for sure.
I mean, I definitely am.
The amount of people that I do tastings with that continue to show me more bottles that they've already opened up that day is pretty fun. And I think people just love the storytelling, and these virtual tastings, it feels normal again, and people feel comfortable because they're in their own homes. And so, I mean, I've learned, and it's much more conversational as opposed to just, here's my presentation, let me tell you the story. And people are excited. And I mean, some people have picked up their laptops and given me a tour of their personal cellar. And I mean, I would never be able to do that otherwise. I mean, it's been interesting. There's been a few Zoom bombs and other things, but
Right.
it does, it feels normal and like that regular kind of connection with people.
Yeah, I think the connection is key, and I think it's so important for the wine industry to establish that kind of sense of comfort and connection, and just show people exactly, you know, here's how I make wine, or here's the grapes that I'm growing. There's one question that I definitely don't want to skip, so I'm going to go to it right now, because this is really kind of the heart of the top 40 under 40 focus, right? Is somebody wants to know, what advice would you give to someone who's in their mid-30s with an established non-wine career, but who has considered packing their bags and moving to wine country because of their undying passion for wine? Anybody?
Do it.
What do you?
Don't do it.
Yeah. So Chappie,
Don't do it.
don't do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
don't
let's
do it.
let's have the positive first. Chappie, why should somebody give up their career and come to? Hopefully they come to Sonoma County.
Hopefully you come to Sonoma County. I think first and foremost, have a financial cushion that you can live for, you know, 6 to 12 months. Sonoma County, for as amazing, beautiful it is an expensive place to live, as we all know. So first and foremost, make sure you got some money in the bank, but then like take the risk. You know, that's what I did. I was living in England and I was working in web design and digital marketing, and I had a little bit of a wine background, but I applied for a harvest intern job, and literally like 3 years later, I get to, you know, run sales and marketing for a company. And, you know, the number of people that you meet every single day and the connections that you get and the wines that you get to taste, you know, even if you do it for 3 months for a harvest season, like it's 3 months, like out of your entire life, it's worth it. So.
Well, and that's such a great way to get in, to at least see if you like it, see if you're built for the production side, or learn about what the other things that people do in a winery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that. I would say I didn't jump when I was in my 30s, but I don't have a wine background. I didn't study that in college, and what I've seen on the hiring side is any facet of the industry that you immediately jump into is going to open the door to other ones. So let's say you start on the vineyard side and you say, hey, maybe wine growing isn't for me. You've now had exposure to grower relations and the business side, and maybe you've had exposure to sales, and you've definitely tasted wine. So maybe now you want to explore that side, but you don't get pigeonholed regardless of where you start. So you just continue to learn and figure out which niche you want to end up in. And maybe you don't, you just keep jumping. But I would say, having my career in the wine industry, you work with some of the most passionate people, and we're around each other 10 to 14 hours a day, if not longer, if it's harvest. And so I think that's a giant component to whether or not you enjoy what you're doing. And I'd say in the wine industry, everybody is incredibly passionate about the craft of making wine, and it's always a very lively discussion. And if you're not having a good day, then you drink beer. So, there's always something. But I would say, outside of the financial risk of it, is you're going to end up in an industry that is very full of passion and opportunity. So I would say do it.
Okay. Is anybody else like on the do it side? Maggie?
I'm on the do it side for sure. I think Sonoma County particularly is also very welcoming. And there's so many other things that you can do. You can get your internship, and if you don't get hired on, there's plenty of other hospitality positions. There's many, many restaurants here. And you can just being a decent person can help you find a job around here because we are so friendly. And I think that really Sonoma is really special in that way.
Okay. And Z, do you want to add your yes or no?
Well, I'll say yes, since I also did that. I had a winemaking background, but still, it's something that if that spark is in you, you got to do it. But now you need to know that when you come here to any winery to work for harvest, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of work. So you have to commit to that. It's not just the glamorous part of winemaking, and you'll see us here just tasting wine. No,
right.
It's an ag business. So and during harvest, we work long hours. It's very demanding mentally and physically. So, but even if with all that, you decide, no, I still want to do it, just get an internship. You don't have to commit for your whole life. If you're 30 something, you're young, so you can try, get that out of you, and either decide to stay in the wine industry, in any area of the wine industry, or go back to your previous job.
Okay, so Chris,
can I add on real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Before we get into the negative, sorry.
Well, I don't know what he's going to say yet.
This is true. To Z's point, right? That was kind of my plan. Is I was like, all right, I'm gonna go try this out for 3 months, figure it out, see if I like it, and then I was supposed to go back to England and work a marketing job in tech, but I decided to stay. So, and it's like full immersion too. You're in it all the time. You're surrounded by wine. Everybody's always talking about wine, so you learn really, really fast. So, anyway,
it is a great place to learn. There's no doubt about that. So, Chris. Yeah. You don't think they should quit their job, maybe just, come and try an internship or work harvest, or what do you think?
When I tell somebody, I tell people no, and they say, I want to get into this. Like, should I do this? I'm like, no, you don't want any part of this. Like, this is brutal. Like these ideas that we're walking around, sampling the vineyards with kerchiefs tied around our neck and our faithful dogs at our side.
Well, Renee does have faithful dogs.
That's not what it's about.
There are faithful dogs.
Yeah, there are faithful dogs. I have one, Tiny Mo, 16 years young. Somebody's out there with me. But it's like, it's not that. It's not sitting around and having 2.5-hour lunches. These ideas that you have that have been propagated by the media. It's not it. You don't want any part of this. No. This is what it's about.
My fault. It's not my fault.
And that's the discussion I have, that people have these ideas. And it's like, this is hard work. Like, you are going to be a janitor. You are going to be sweeping. You're going to be squeegeeing. You are going to be ducking out of the way of forklifts and 1.5 ton boxes. This is an application of agriculture. A winery is a fancy word for grape refinery. I always tell people no, because if they're going to be dissuaded by the no and the description of hard work, there isn't room in the business for you. It's the people who hear the no and that makes them want to do it even more. they're the people who are going to be like, told me no, well, I'll show you that I can. And that's where it comes from, you know? So telling people no from the jump can sometimes really separate the wheat from the chaff. Because the people who don't take no for an answer are going to be the best workers. I mean, that's what I was. You know, I've never taken a class in wine. I've never taken a class in winemaking or wine. You know, I have a degree in communication, a variant of it that was data sciences before that had a name, you know, to date myself as one of the oldest people on the 40 under 40 list. You know, and I got into the business, and it was something I was going to do for a few years and then go get a real job. And, you know, and I worked my first job was at Gallo, actually. You know, I got hired on there as an internship at Fire Ranch. And I said, this was cool. Then I worked at Michelle Schlumberger, Meeker Moritzen, Armida twice. And then I went and worked for Wachovia Dealer Services. I went like, I'm a good little Stanford grad. I'm going to get a job at a bank, you know. And after 1 year, 1 month, and 19 days, that wasn't for me. You know, didn't help the fact that it was in the middle of the Great Recession, and I was working on a mathematical model for repossessing people's cars. You know, I realized how good I had it in wine, and came back into the industry realizing how lucky I was to have it. But it took that experience. So, you know, but it was like doing the hard work and getting into it. So, you know, it's just kind of being committed to it. So I on one hand wouldn't discourage anybody from doing it, but I just make sure that your heart's in the right place and that you're really serious about it, and then go get an internship. And you might like it, you might not. You might do it for a couple of years and go back to what you were doing. But hey, you know, you gave it a go. So, but it ultimately starts with having that determination to complete the task. Like, you have to have a lot of heart to be in this industry, because the money ain't great. The perks are awesome. The people you work with are pretty fantastic, but you know, it's really requires a lot of love and passion, determination in the face against, you know, in the face of adversity, against all odds, and long hours to do it. So, you know, like I said, I tell people no to help temper their expectations. And if they have enough heart to keep on going and say, this is my dream, I'm committed, then God bless you, more power to you. Go out there and prove me wrong.
Well,
can I add something, Virginie?
Yeah,
I appreciate the realist perspective there from Chris. And I wish this would have, well, I don't wish it, and thank God it didn't, but if this was happening during harvest and like all of us looked, you know, a little bit haggard, and I don't even recognize myself right now because I don't get to look like this at work. But you know, if you would have asked us in the middle of harvest when we've got grapes and wine stains all over us, and you know, we're just counting down to the end of this at 4 o'clock just to get a couple of hours of sleep before we jump in, that would give a little bit of perspective. It is incredibly grueling, but it definitely is a labor of love and a passion industry, because yeah, most of us aren't getting rich off of this, but we put in, you know, 10 to 12 hours a day, and the bags just aren't as big under our eyes right now. So
well, then the next time we talk, it will be, we'll catch you at 4 o'clock, you know, 4 in the morning, as new fire is breaking out, and you know, heat, and you're tired. But well, sadly, just as we're getting into the real philosophical meat of this, our time has come to an end. So I appreciate so much this conversation. I appreciate all of your perspectives. This has been great fun. And, you know, congratulations for being the wheat and not the chaff, and, you know, having your passion and determination win out and thankfully grace the pages of Wine Enthusiast. I really appreciate all of you and your work. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a huge honor to be included in the list this year. You know, it's been a career goal of mine, #squat goals, since I found out it existed. So this is like, you know, to kind of come at the 11th hour at 39 years and, you know, 139 days old to still make the list. It's like,
you made it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care, everybody, and get some rest, Renee.
Yeah.
Will do.
Bye.
Rest? I own my own business. Like, there's no rest for that. Like,
yeah, very true.